16827 East Pier Road,
Oh, yes.
which we had the email from, well, Jesse got the email that you shared with all of us from our Lake City Law. And if we all know what the attorneys, how the attorneys sat with that, I mean, we made the motion to send it to the attorneys, so now we need to give this a yay or a nay, I guess.
Yeah, so basically he's saying that you have the authority to enter into the agreement and then gave you his,
But it's pretty cut and dried, I mean, that's what we discussed. That is one unit, and by them advertising it as 3 units, I mean, if you have a group of people that are sharing the whole thing, you know, they can have 2 or 3 families in there, but it's still 1 unit.
Right.
um,
There's 12 people living in the place across from me. Really? 12.
it's not that big.
Yeah. My view, and I'll come right out and stand on this, is I would say this got to our attention for us to say anything about this too soon. No violations have occurred yet. They have not asked for service to be hooked up to that building, so no violation has occurred yet. The moment they would ask for service to be turned on to that place, we would be giving a nod to
Service has been
what,
turned on to this place
from
for
my understanding, it,
decades.
well, but I mean, it's not being charged to anybody. I mean, who do we bill?
Well, we bill the property owners, and so although there's never been an internal staircase, the way it was assessed before was as a business, and under 10 employees, it's 1 ER for each. So assess that way.
Yeah, so.
The problem is also, since the last board meeting and offering to enter into this agreement, it is still currently advertised on Airbnb as 3 units. So entertaining with the customer that we would enter into an agreement with them and view this as 1 unit, that you can never rent them out separately as 3, that we're $255 in on searching into this agreement, and the customer is still advertising as 3 units at this point. Also, the attorney is recognizing that the kitchen is at the board's discretion on how to deem it as a kitchen, and he references here common sense definition of the word kitchen, and then also expresses his concern over the internal staircase and how can you argue it as a single dwelling with no internal structure to combine them.
And basically what they want is an agreement that it's all right to run 3 separate units because they want to make a sale.
We're not gonna give them that.
They want to sell it with that agreement.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's not my understanding at all.
Okay.
My understanding is it's a, they have 1 ER and they have to operate it as 1 ER.
Yes,
They cannot
that was the
advertise
agreement.
this, and they cannot advertise it as 3 separate units, they can advertise it as 1 unit.
Agreed.
Mute him, please.
Yeah,
Robert, we're muting you.
we'll call in the customers. Right now, this is a board meeting and discussion with board members.
Okay.
Sorry, Paul, as you
Go
were
ahead,
saying.
Did you read Paul?
So,
Oh.
just some of the things that were said were not the same things in my mind, so I'm concerned.
From last month, correct? My,
Well, I'm not sure if I had the agreement or not, quite frankly, I can't seem to find it, so.
There is no agreement.
yeah, that was also in your board meeting packet, I believe?
Yeah, the email.
Not on Tuesday, I couldn't find it.
Yeah, it's in there.
Fuck you.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
He was muted, but he's coming through with his profanity.
Well, again, so the agreement, what we asked, we made the motion to go to our legal team.
Correct.
To
We
have
said
them-
that we would entertain the idea of entering into an agreement with the customer that this would be a single unit dwelling and that we would go to our attorneys and this would be dependent on legal review. And so I sent it over to our attorneys with all the information and this is what he came back with as ultimately that the board does have the authority to enter into a separate agreement, but with legal advice and concerns for your guys' consideration before doing so, if you should proceed to move forward with that.
So do we have a proposed agreement yet?
No, we do not, because
No.
these, also one of his areas in the email that he sent, which is part of the board meeting packet stuff, was that if we do enter into this agreement, or the board does decide to move forward with it, with the attorney's comments of caution, that we would put it on the customer to go to their attorney, and, because the district should not be fiscally responsible to create this document. If the customer is asking for the district to make special circumstances and agreements, then it would be the customer's responsibility to have their attorney draft something up for us to review. So there's no actual agreement in place at this time. And I will let the board know that since this last meeting, we do have 2 other areas in the district similar to this. So keeping that in mind when entering into an agreement.
So where are we? No, we don't have, so we don't have an agreement, this is just what our legal team, their recommendations. So they said they would be happy to create that agreement if that we decided to go forward. But so what this is then, so what this is what? We read the agreement and we're gonna decide on how we're gonna go forward with it, right? Or this is just a him. I mean, we don't have to.
It's just a recommendation.
Right. There's nothing to vote on here. It is just a recommendation. And, I mean, going back to what I was saying, so the customer is currently paying
1 sewer and 1 water.
1 sewer, 1 water. Now, has that been service just been turned on and been that way forever? Or
Yeah, as long as I've been with this district, and since 2007, they've been billed for 1 water.
and when somebody sells their house and a new person, well, the new buyer moves into the house, they are gonna get a hold of us to set up the account to create.
Which
to pay
did
for their
happen.
water.
The realtor at the time in charge, when Fish and Game was selling it, they came and they asked a series of possibilities of what they could do with the building.
Right.
And we were very explicit on what could and could not happen.
Right.
During construction, when site inspections first started happening, Bob and I, on our way to Captain's Wheel, stopped by there during construction, confirmed, hey, this is 1 dwelling. Everyone confirmed, yep, that's what's going on here. And then upon completion of the building, clearly it's advertised as we see it to date on AIRBNB, the street units.
So,
So really, until we get,
go ahead,
until
Paul.
we don't have a moratorium and we have the ability to sell additional hookups, our hands are very tied here.
Yes.
That unit has one completely legal, equivalent residential unit, and they need to operate it that way. And as long as that happens,
We're
we're
fine.
all good. Once they go beyond that, and they're renting it out as 2 units, there's 2 ERs, I think that's pretty well established. Then they're outside of what they're supposed to do, and then we got a problem, and we have to act. Any potential agreement is just kind of agreeing with that up front, right? So they can rent it out as 1 unit to 1 big family, no real problem, that fits the ER definition. But they can't rent it out as 2 or 3 units because at least 2 of the units are definitely ERs. The third one doesn't really have a kitchen. I don't see it really quite qualifies as an ER. But the real crux of the problem is we have this problem in our district that we're tied into our sewer system intention in 1991, and nobody's allowed to change anything. I mean, they could come for a second ER and we can't do anything for them. I mean, it's not the way things should be, but it is the way it is right now.
It is the way it is.
And the only reason it's being pushed right now is a factor that they want some kind of an agreement to complete the sale.
Yeah.
And so the agreement comes out as pretty simple. It's, you get 1 ER and it has to operate as 1 ER.
And when the place was sold to them, it was understood that they had 1 ER.
Right. So, you know, we haven't damaged anybody, so
Right.
I understand they're not getting the highest and best use of their investments. I completely appreciate that. And I wish we had an ER to sell them.
Right.
But right now, we don't seem to have that ability.
Okay,
Not by choice.
but anyway, do we
Yeah,
tell
so,
them to have their attorney write up an agreement that they think would be feasible under our circumstances?
Yeah, I think that expense falls to them. It shouldn't be
It does, yeah.
expensive. It shouldn't be an expensive, legal document. I can see much more of a 1-pager. It's just really a letter of understanding.
because he wants to get it sold so somebody else can move in and apparently have it back into a 1
No,
ER.
no, the person that's looking at buying it wants to have it as a VRBO.
3 units.
Yeah, but if I was selling it, I want some protection so that they don't come back on me and go,
Ah,
you said I could rent this out as a 3-room VRBO.
Yeah, because as it currently stands right now, per our ordinance, we're viewing it as a violation currently. So, the possibility of no action, I just want that to be very clear, the possibility of no action at this time isn't existing.
correct.
It's a current violation, and so the agreement that would need to be drafted up would bring them back into compliance with an understanding that the entire unit can be rented as a whole.
And
It
when
would
the-
never at any point in time be rented to 2 separate.
Right. And that was in the agreement when you bought the property.
I know it's not what somebody wants to hear, but it's violence.
Okay,
I lived with as per in accordance with for so many years.
So really, in our end, we have a part of this, and that we need to be able to help them cure their violation, essentially. And so we
Oh,
should
I
be
see where
helpful.
you're going.
We should be helpful towards that.
Yeah,
As any public agency should be, to help constituents solve problems. we're not here to create problems, so.
But do we have the authority to be telling them that they gotta put staircases on the inside and connect everything up with hallways and such like that? I mean, that's,
I don't know if we have that authority, we're not
no,
building and zoning board.
No.
Right.
I also wanna remind the
Some
board that
people, some people may wanna make us into a building and zoning board, and not these folks,
No.
but there's people in the community who think we ought to be a planning and zoning board, and we're not.
I wanted to remind the board that we do have, the current owner of the building, attending the meeting, so if you guys
Yes.
wanted to open it up to them and hear what they have to say,
Fine by me.
okay.
yeah, that's good.
I'll ask to unmute them. Are you with us?
Hi there,
Oh, hello.
yeah. Just a couple comments. I think my understanding the buyer going forward is fine with renting it as one, unit. The frustrating thing when we bought it is we were always told from the very beginning, it was ran as two businesses, like a beauty shop down below and I can't remember, something else above. That was the draw of us buying it was, you know, it looked like that opportunity. I think it'll do just as fine with the business as one big unit, because the draw there is, you know, people want bigger houses and to be up by the lake. But that's the frustrating part for me is we didn't know we were in violation, and does that mean that people are in violation that owned it before us and owned it before them?
It can be a business, it can be a business, but it can't be termed as a residence.
It was actually ran as two separate businesses though. And I'm not trying to promote that, I'm just like
think we do
stating the
that.
fact that the history of it.
I'm unaware.
All we were saying, by the way, I apologize, I thought it was on mute, fellas, ladies. All we were saying is the building just should be treated fairly, but I think the buyer and us are in agreement that we would sign one unit. And the buyer, I believe, is there, so he can speak for himself, but we don't wanna be in violation. But
You know, all we need is a simple letter, I think, along those lines.
is the buyer there in agreement with us?
Yeah, I mean, that's my intention to rent it with one, but I bought it with the understanding that it was three. I'm under contract with what it currently is. I didn't know any of this until I explored it. It was not brought to my
Well,
attention.
and we've never rented it as three, while we've had it, yeah, it's marketed, but, most case it would be two. But obviously if we're in violation for that, then, you know, does it not matter how it was used before? It's just going forward?
In my time that I've been here, it was just the fish and game building.
That's all we knew, we didn't know there was
Um,
more than one business.
Yeah.
Didn't know of anything else
Never
other than
knew
fish and
two
game.
businesses.
Yeah,
It
before it was
can
fish
be,
and game, it was a beauty shop and,
Well, Sherry was
Before your
on
time
the way.
too?
yeah, and the way our ordinance is written is, a business with 10 employees or less is 1 year.
Yeah, I've never known it, except as fish and game.
That's me too.
Yeah, it was out.
I don't know what it was originally built for.
Originally, it was built as a multi-business facility.
yeah.
Bayview's idea of a strip mall? Oh my.
Okay.
But we do have
How do we move forward?
a definition of a residence
One.
and that you're trying to take two residential properties and rent them out separately.
Which is a violation. If it only has one. Because it wouldn't matter if downstairs was a business and upstairs was a house, you'd still need two. because the business would need one and the house would need one. Or the residence, I shouldn't say house, the residence.
Not necessarily,
Huh?
because the business would not qualify as a residence.
But a business with less than 10 employees is charged 1 ER.
Correct.
So if the bottom was a business, you would still need 1 ER for the bottom. And the house would be a residence, would need 1 ER. Regardless.
This needs to be treated fairly the way it always was. But this was the point that we entered into the agreement, because there is no equity here.
And
So we're trying to create a standard so everybody's happy.
so what we have is we have a district with, we know, without saying names, there is a possibility of other people that are possibly renting out an